Hello and welcome to RWR Plays TEW 2020. This is chapter 31 of WCW Lives On, where we play as Eric Bischoff, as if Fusion Media Ventures bought WCW in early 2001 instead of WWE, creating this alternative timeline. And the first thing I want to do is apologize for the delay in getting this latest episode out. It's been a strange couple of weeks. There's been some things going on in my life that have taken over, but also I actually did try and record this once already, and I got all the way through the video, or at least the recording of the video, and then I stopped, and I realized for whatever reason that it only captured the final the first 9 minutes of the recording, which was a real, really annoying situation for me, and that kind of took the impetus out of me doing the series. Obviously, we've been doing the series now for 31 episodes, and I got to the point where I was starting to get a little bit fatigued as you do these things, because they take up a lot of your brain space. They take up a lot of your thinking time, and then I did that episode and it didn't record properly, and I was just annoyed, and so I was like, I need to step away from this for at least a week, and just refresh and get back into the kind of the love of doing it. So I feel like I'm back there. So this is why we're able to now bring you chapter 31. And that's also why that slight break existed. Of course, we also released our video about things we'd like to see, features we'd like to see in a new TEW game. We know following the announcement that TEW 9 will be coming out very shortly indeed. Check that out if you haven't done so already. And of course, press the subscribe button below to continue to follow along with everything that we're going to be doing going forward. Now, of course, today we are looking at the Go Home episode of Nitro ahead of Halloween Havoc. So it's a pretty important episode that we're going to be bringing you today. But first, before we do that, let's have a look at what happened on the last episode. First of all, a number of matches were set in stone for a Halloween Havoc, including Ric Flair versus Shane Douglas and Diamond Dallas Page accepting Kevin Nash's challenge to a loser leaves WCW match. Also, we had the Great Sasuke successfully defending the Cruiserweight title against the returning Psychosis. In addition to that, AJ Styles and Billy Kidman made it through to the semi-finals of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix. On WCW Saturday night, Bill Goldberg and Jim Duggan defeated Mark Jindrak and Sean Stasiak to settle a match on this week's Nitro against Team Canada, which, if they win, will qualify them for a shot at the WCW Tag Team titles at Halloween Havoc. And Tommy Dreamer accepted Terry Funk's challenge for a match on Nitro, which will also take place this week. So that was everything in the last episode. Let's bring you then WCW Nitro, the Go Home episode before Halloween Havoc. And you can see we're at the Star of the Desert Arena back in Nevada for this particular TV taping. And we start with a non-televised dark match between Buff Bagwell and Aguilar. Goes 6 minutes and 49 seconds, and Bagwell gets the victory by pinfall. And nothing particularly important about this other than Bagwell's really impressive performance of 62, which gave the segment rating 62. Bagwell obviously carrying it to that, but Aguilar wasn't a bad performer either. We've kind of dropped the ball with Aguilar a little bit. I've barely used him since he's come in. We only gave him a short-term deal because he is kind of like a freelancer and didn't want to be tied down to any particular company for very long. And I think that that's kind of why we've not perhaps given him as much TV time as we might have done. We probably would have got a bit more exposure had we kind of had him for the long term. But anyway, Bagwell's won the match. And that's the dark match in the bag ahead of the show, which gets underway right now. And the first segment is Mike Tenay and Jerry Lawler welcoming us to the show. And Mike Tenay says that tonight will be headlined by one of the biggest matches in Nitro history, as the Steiner brothers, Jeff Jarrett, Shane Douglas and Kevin Nash take on Curt Hennig, DDP, Booker T, Ric Flair and Sting in massive 10-man tag action. Jerry Lawler says he cannot wait, but also tonight we have the semi-finals of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix as Chavo Guerrero Jr. takes on AJ Styles, and tag team partners Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. are up against one another. Tenay then says that the lineup is even more stacked than that, as tonight Bill Goldberg and Jim Duggan get their chance to become #1 contenders to the tag titles in a match with Team Canada. Jerry Lawler says that the excitement is off the page with Halloween Havoc just 6 days away. Tenay then adds finally that speaking of Halloween Havoc, 2 more matches have been made official for the show. Firstly, Scott Steiner will battle Curt Hennig, and just confirmed earlier today, Sean O'Haire will finally get his hands on his former partner, Prodigy. So a really good segment rating here of 72. Tenay and Lawler really kind of setting the scene for this show and Halloween Havoc really, really well. Happy with this to get us underway. The first match of the night is a segment rating of 29, so a real decrease on the previous segment. It's Johnny the Bull versus Mikey Whipwreck. During the match, the commentary team remind everyone that in 6 days' time, Whipwreck and his partner Tajiri challenge for the Cruiserweight Tag titles at Halloween Havoc. And this match ends in a no contest when the FBI and Yoshihiro Tajiri arrive on the scene and chaos ensues, resulting in a double disqualification after 6 minutes 58 seconds. Johnny the Bull was not a good performance here. Mikey Whipwreck was pretty decent, but the crowd were turned off by having a match outside of the pre-show between workers they don't have any investment in. After the match, though, things took an interesting twist. With the superior numbers, the Mamelukes took control of the fight between the two sides, Johnny the Bull, James Maritato and Frankie Cicero outnumbering Whipwreck and Tajiri. But after that, arriving with a steel chair, Balls Mahoney debuts in WCW to even the odds and clears the ring of the heels. So Balls Mahoney has arrived and has sided with Whipwreck and Tajiri here. A little bit of a small stable of former ECW guys, but sort of mid-card or lower mid-card ECW guys really, in truth. A segment rating of 27. Not much better than the previous match. In fact, actually less good than the previous match. But Balls Mahoney has arrived, and he is, of course, the equalizer that Whipwreck and Tajiri had previously talked about. Next up, we have the first of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix semi-finals, and AJ Styles takes on Chavo Guerrero Jr. And in the match, AJ Styles gets the victory in 30 minutes and 1 second by pinfall. Segment rating of 57, although I was hoping for a little better. It was not AJ Styles' best performance as of late. He's had some pretty good performances. Chavo Guerrero Jr. was at 56, but AJ Styles is the one progressing to the final at Halloween Havoc. Now, for the next segments, the commentators are transitioning to the next match, which will see the tag team match between Goldberg and Duggan and Team Canada. They are informed of something taking place backstage. When the cameras are thrown there, Tony Schiavone is on screen and Jim Duggan is behind him on the floor with Goldberg checking on him. Schiavone says that he and Goldberg were in the go position ahead of the tag match when a referee called them to come with him, and when they got there, Duggan was down. Schiavone asks Goldberg and Duggan what happened. Duggan says he's a little beaten up but okay to go. He says Bagwell and Luger attacked him from behind. Goldberg, hearing this, says that those scumbags tried to prevent the match from happening, and now he and Duggan are going to run through Team Canada, and then they're coming for the champions. So segment rating here of 64, as Duggan was attacked by Bagwell and Luger, and now Goldberg is vowing victory in the next match. And indeed, they get that victory when in 12 minutes and 29 seconds, Goldberg pins Lance Storm. During the match, Team Canada managed to manipulate the action to get Jim Duggan in the ring and take over on him for the majority of it. But eventually, however, Duggan got the hot tag and Goldberg managed to spear and jackhammer Lance Storm for the victory. A segment rating here of 70. Goldberg was excellent, Lance Storm was excellent, Mike Awesome was pretty decent, and Jim Duggan was certainly the weak link in the match, but nevertheless this was pretty decent. A segment rating of 70, I've got to be happy with that. Next up, Tony Schiavone introduces his guest at this time, the man who will challenge Mike Awesome at Halloween Havoc for the US title, Sting. Schiavone says that since the relaunch of WCW back in May, Mike Awesome is yet to be pinned or to submit, and he asks Sting whether he can do what nobody else seems to be able to do. Sting says that he's seen Awesome in action and there's no denying that he's a special talent. He says that he's done with the hype, however, it is time to find out just how good Mike Awesome really is. So segment rating here of 69 as we hype the match between Sting and Mike Awesome for the US title at Halloween Havoc. Schiavone was not good in this segment at all. The next match is the scheduled contest between Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk, and this one ends in a double disqualification when Nick Gage comes out and attacks both men with a steel chair. Got a segment rating of 50, and Tommy Dreamer seemed off of his game, but they have great chemistry between Dreamer and Funk, and therefore the match wasn't too bad. Dreamer is 60, Terry Funk of 47 for this one. And after the match, Nick Gage continues to hit both men with the steel chair and spits on both of them as the segment closes. A segment rating here of 44. Apparently this one needed to be a little bit more star power in the segment in order to successfully have Nick Gage fighting for as long as he was. But nevertheless, a 44 with Nick Gage as the main kind of focus of the angle means that he is still progressing relatively well. As I've commented before, I don't really have an end game in sight for this story. I've taken a few twists and turns through the story simply because I'm not entirely sure where I want to end up with it, and that's not a big deal, simply because I don't have huge plans, at least at the moment, for any of these guys long term. So I'm happy just sort of freewheeling it as we go and seeing what comes of it. So then the next match sees Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Billy Kidman in Cruiserweight Grand Prix number 2. In this one, Rey Mysterio Jr. beats Billy Kidman in 17 minutes and 8 seconds by pinfall. Rey Mysterio Jr. had an in-ring performance of 80, Kidman a 68, making for a segment rating of 64. I think this would have been much better if one of these had been a heel. Obviously, this is babyface versus babyface, given that they are tag team partners. And Rey Mysterio Jr. will be the man who goes to Halloween Havoc to face AJ Styles in the final of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix. Next up, Sharmell Sullivan is backstage and introduces her interview guest, WCW World Champion Jeff Jarrett. Sullivan says that Jarrett is just 6 days away from his defense of the WCW title against Booker T and asks how he is feeling. Jarrett laughs and then says that he's feeling relaxed and asks Sullivan to indulge him for a little while as he reminds everyone of his record against Booker T. He says that all the way back at Slamboree, he defeated Booker T by disqualification when Booker was so fearful of being pinned that he blatantly grabbed a foreign object and deliberately got himself disqualified. Then, a couple of weeks later, he pinned Booker T 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring without incident. Sullivan then suggests that Jarrett isn't telling the whole story. Jarrett responds that there is no reason to quibble over the details. The fact of the matter is that he's got Booker T's number, and at Halloween Havoc, it'll be the same story. So segment rating here 59, I put that largely down to the fact that Sharmell Sullivan brought it down a bit because Jeff Jarrett came out of this looking excellent, just 6 days away from his defense of the WCW title against Booker T. And then finally, the main event with all the big stars in it. Kurt Hennig, DDP, Booker T, Ric Flair and Sting defeated Scott Steiner, Rick Steiner, Jeff Jarrett, Shane Douglas and Kevin Nash in 14 minutes and 49 seconds when DDP pinned Rick Steiner. Obviously, Scott had a 93, Ric Flair a 90, Sting an 83, Jeff Jarrett an 80, Kevin Nash an 85, Booker T a 74. Nobody below the rating of 67, which is what Kurt Hennig got. So a really, really decent array of performances. And a segment rating of 75 means that this has been another successful show in terms of improving our popularity. And that is the end of the final Nitro before Halloween Havoc, and I wanted the big 10-man tag match because I felt like it gave the sense of this chaotic scene of different wrestlers trying to get to different places, and it was a bit of a mix and match. It didn't have all the people that were in same feuds with each other. For example, Sting and Mike Awesome are facing each other at Halloween Havoc, and Mike Awesome wasn't in the match. There were one or two little bits and pieces like that kind of wasn't quite, parallel to the matches that are going to take place, but that for me made it more attractive because it just meant that there were more things involved going on in this one. Anyway, a good end to the show, and now we're going to bring you WCW Saturday Night. And you'll see here that the TV taping has attracted 3,877 to the Star of the Desert Arena, so a really healthy attendance for this one in the Southwest region. And the opener of the Saturday night show is Lex Luger defeating Chris Cage in 6 minutes and 26 seconds by submission, a segment rating of 47. Luger a performance of 58, Chris Cage only a 23. Now Cage, along with a number of people who were in the Hot Prospects tournament, only signed short-term deals with me, and I don't think Chris Cage is going to be sticking around for any time after that deal, so we thought we'd get some value from him and have him put some people over as a sort of jobber to the Stars. Then Sharmell Sullivan is backstage with AJ Styles, and who this Sunday will be facing Rey Mysterio Jr. in the Cruiserweight Grand Prix. She asks AJ Styles how it feels to have gotten this far. Styles says he is delighted to have done as well as he has. He says he knew he had what it took, but results don't always pan out the way you want, so to be in the final is a real thrill. Sullivan asks Styles whether he can finish it off now in the final. And Styles says that he knows going up against Rey Mysterio Jr. he's the big underdog, but he says he's been written off before and overcome the odds, and he believes he can do it again. So segment rating here of 34, not particularly great. Sullivan did not perform very well at all, and AJ Styles struggled when going off script. So this didn't go so well, but nevertheless some TV time, mic time for Styles ahead of the pay-per-view on Sunday. Next up, the latest match in the women's title round robin saw Jillian Hall defeat Amber O'Neil in 6 minutes and 55 seconds by pinfall. This one got a segment rating of 14 between two of the lesser kind of wrestlers in terms of who's caught on during the round robin, certainly in terms of my imagination anyway. And Amber O'Neil had an 18, Jillian Hall a 17 in terms of their performance, but again, the crowd were turned off by the match being between two people they don't have any investment in. Nevertheless, we continue on with that particular one. Prior to this, Jillian Hall was at 1 win, 3 losses, and O'Neil was at 2-2. So Jillian Hall got a much needed victory here. Next up, as the Gothic Collective and their opponents in the next match are lined up ready for action, Sean O'Hare emerges from the back and stands on the stage with a microphone. He says that he just wants Prodigy to know that at Halloween Havoc he's going down. So a really quick segment here, a rating of 60 as Sean O'Hare kind of warns Prodigy ahead of their match going in Halloween Havoc. Next up, the 6-man tag match, which saw the Gothic Collective take on Bobby Eaton, Lash LaRue, and Jason Jett, is won by the Gothic Collective when Prodigy pins Jason Jett. And a segment rating here of 46. Vampiro was the best wrestler in the ring, 71 rating for him. Jester had a 61. Prodigy still got a little bit of way to go in terms of his development, but he got a 47, and all the rest were lower than that, but obviously they are basically enhancement talents at this point. In the next segment, Sharmell Sullivan welcomed the other finalist in the Cruiserweight Grand Prix, Rey Mysterio Jr. Sullivan says that as Rey Mysterio Jr. heads into Halloween Havoc, he does so as the favourite, which must be a strange feeling. Mysterio says that he admits that most of his career he's been the underdog, so going in as favourite brings with it a different kind of pressure for sure. Sullivan asks what Mysterio makes of his opponent on Sunday, AJ Styles, and Mysterio says that he's a great talent, a real prospect. He says he has had some time against him in the ring in tag action in the past, and he knew then that Styles was as good as people said he was. Sullivan finally asks whether he's going to win the Cruiserweight Grand Prix on Sunday, and Mysterio says that no matter what people say, he's got to go to Halloween Havoc and get the job done, and that's all he's focused on right now. So segment rating here of 52 as Rey Mysterio Jr. also hypes up his match with AJ Styles in the final of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix set to take place at Halloween Havoc. And then for the main event, the European Union versus Bam Bam Bigelow and Kanyon. In a decent match here, the European Union defeated Bigelow and Kanyon in 12:53 when Wright pinned Kanyon. Kanyon was the best wrestler in the match, which was a shame that he had to lose this one, but Norman Smiley and Alex Wright get the victory here, 53 out of 44 for their performance, Bigelow on a 51. The segment rating 53 overall, so a decent way to finish up this TV taping, and Saturday night then comes to a close. And so that is all of the TV taping for this week. The European Union defeated Bam Bam Bigelow and Kanyon in the main event, and that was a decent way to finish up our build for Halloween Havoc. Of course, our next episode that we will be bringing you in this series is the Halloween Havoc episode, and I'm very, very excited about bringing that to you. I think it's got a heck of a lot of interesting matches that we're going to be bringing you on that show, and I'm looking forward to seeing what your reaction is to everything that takes place at it. Now, before we go today, a couple of bits and pieces to address. First of all, Raw was in Tennessee in front of 14,000 people this week, and in the main event, Edge and Christian defeated APA to retain the WWF World Tag Team titles in a 77 rated match. So this is about the weakest episode of Raw I think we've seen up to this point. They've got an array of stars, an array of talent, but they haven't used them much in this show, and a show rating of 79 is not particularly impressive. Is there anything else interesting here? Don't particularly think there is anything else, obviously, that's important to note. The feedback from viewers has been great about WCW Nitro, so that's really cool. And yeah, as I say, the next episode is Halloween Havoc, and I'm looking forward to bringing it to you. Lots of big matches. Now, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like down below, and as I said before, give us a subscribe as well. Then you'll be able to continue to follow along with everything that happens within this series. Until next time, though, thank you very much for watching.